Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez and you are here for the semi-final recap show. 2 semi-finals on the weekend, 2 teams won and went to the prelims, 2 teams lost, and to talk about it all, I'm here with Sauce.
Hey guys, it was an exciting semi-finals week as we had really big build-up and anticipation, and one game that was really disappointing and one game that probably had a couple of fans a little bit frustrated for some missed opportunities. Pez probably being one of them. Commiserations, Pez.
Oh yeah, that's all right. We always expected to lose against the might of the Tigers in the last three years, but goal kicking didn't really help St Kilda being an accurate team this year and missing a lot of opportunities when they had it, and Richmond just dominating in that centre clearances and getting some quick entries into the forward 50, which meant some quick marks and some decent shots on goal.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I think that you are right on where you guys need to be. You made your finals this year, you finished 8th. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but you know, it's right where you need to be. You were competitive. You didn't get blown out from the final. And I think there are opportunities for you guys to actually take the lead, and you really matched it with Richmond. And let's be honest here, Richmond have been one of the best teams all year, and they're the informed team. And you lost it from some inaccuracies and in the middle and got dominated in that ruck.
Yeah, the middle and the ruck was the main issues there. We had Paddy Ryder obviously missing, so Rowan Marshall had to go in there. And then Jonathan Marsh actually went in to back him up, and it just bounced off that bloke's hands all night, and he couldn't get anything going. St Kilda couldn't really get anything going forward as well. They took some easy shots that they should have converted but didn't, and some shots were a little bit tougher. But Richmond just showed their class and their toughness with what they did around the ball, and Dustin Martin looked like no one was playing on him, and they set up at centre clearances really well to get him open, and he had a lot of inside 50s for what he had in 25 touches on the day.
Yeah, big turnaround from the week before where he was nowhere to be sighted in that second half of football against Brisbane. But that's what champions do. They bounce back and they make you pay. And early on, you saw it from Richmond. They were on a mission right from the word go, kicking those opening 2 goals, and they looked like they were going to absolutely destroy St Kilda. So St Kilda's credit, they adjusted straight away, which was really good, but they just got absolutely beaten up in those centre clearances and through that midfield. And I mean, you would be disappointed obviously in a loss, but as I said, Perry, you have to be happy with how your Saints have played this year, and you know you didn't expect where a lot of people expect them to finish. For them to finish there and only go down by 31, it blew out to the ends, but you had it down to couple of goals going into that fourth quarter, start of the fourth.
Yeah, there were three or so goals, but they never in the game after half time because Tigers kicked 5 goals in the first quarter, 4 goals in the second. The thing that killed them, they only lost the clearances by 3, St Kilda, but the centre clearance was 15-5. So when everyone was out and they only had the 3 midfielders and the rucks in there, then they just got absolutely dominated with no follow-up work. They seemed not to put pressure on the ball, and Richmond's pressure is elite. So that stands up in finals footy. They couldn't get the job done against Brisbane in the previous week, but they go in with a lot of confidence to play against Port Adelaide this week at the Adelaide Oval and try and get in another grand final.
Yeah, most definitely. They are an elite side, and it was some really amazing performances from some of the not unknown characters, I wouldn't say, but some of the less likely heroes. You spoke about Dusty Martin there, but Shea Bolton. Wow. Did he stamp his authority on that game and really sort of, salute himself as one of the superstars coming? And he's only 21, kicked a couple of absolute amazing goals. And he just looked elite there. He sort of looked at that Scott Pendlebury slowing the game down. He looked like he was unable to be tackled at one stage. Looked good.
Yeah, definitely one to watch. Yeah, he kicked the 3 goals. He played at full forward for a little bit there as well and just came out of the square onto the lead. He's really quick as well off that mark, so really got in front of the defenders. And a couple of their goals, Richmond, especially in the first half, were just, around the corner. They bounced the right way and bounced through, and St Kilda didn't really have that. Some teams have that goalkeeper kind of on the last line, and they didn't really have that, didn't really adjust. I'm pretty sure it was 3 goals in the first half that actually bounced through and could have been stopped on the line, but the adjustment wasn't there, and the adjustment was too late.
You even got one that was stopped on the line. Oh, that was the other way around, was it? We talking goal reviews yet, are we?
We're not talking goal reviews yet, but it wouldn't have changed much. But it would have put some scoreboard pressure on as well, because the arc, absolutely shocking. And no matter if I'm a St Kilda fan or not, everyone would know that that's most likely a goal from the review. And the umpire wasn't sure and said it might be behind. And then the guy in the arc goes, "Oh, it's inconclusive. I can't make a call. Go with the umpire's call."
Yeah, I know listeners know exactly where we stand on this, but I'm going to say it over and over again. I'm going to continue saying it until something is changed. I find it absolutely ridiculous that the umpire that has seen it once and who is the original person that's not sure about the result anyway is where we go back to for the final conclusion. I've got no problems if the ARC doesn't have an idea what it is, because as you said, there wasn't enough evidence there. But after watching it 7 or 8 times, everyone could see that it was clear daylight. So you know what? We haven't got to determine if enough information. I think that the original call was wrong, and I think that the evidence we've got is the most directing towards it being a goal. So award the goal.
Yeah, and the worst thing is the cameras. Like with those blurry cameras, if his fist was anywhere near the ball, yes, it's inconclusive. I understand that, but looking at the angle that we saw, which is before the ARC person made their decision, you can see the ball going towards the post, and you can see his fist, a few centimetres away at least. So he didn't touch it. You saw his reaction afterwards as well, which obviously he didn't touch it and it went over. It's not Richmond's fault. I believe that every player that's on the line, if they go anywhere near the ball and they know they didn't touch it, I think they should put their hands up and say touch to try and get a review. And you've got to try and bend the rules where you can. But so it's not cheating or anything like that, but it's just wrong from the AFL not to have the quality cameras. And for this occasion, in a semi-final, not to have the actual camera, not even you don't even need the camera. Not to make the right decision was tough.
Yeah, it was tough, but you're 100% right there. And it was interesting, the commentator spoke about it the night, and Vlosten automatically goes up, but it's almost, you hear in his voice, he's almost defeated in the way that he does it. And I agree, I think anyone who's on that goal line, they should do everything in their power to win. It's not cheating or anything. You're doing everything in your power, and I think you should definitely make the case and take advantage of the technologies there. But this just builds towards the slow villain that is building, that is becoming Richmond. Now, Richmond have been a powerhouse, and when they won their first premiership, like all teams do, we saw it with, Golden State Warriors. You see it with any sort of LeBron-driven team, that the teams that sort of come from nothing, they win, and then they slowly become the villain. And Richmond is building with the villain for this, the Hawthorn famous tag, unsocial football. I don't like that tag because I don't think that they play a high, rough brand football. Sometimes I think they actually just play just a dirty brand of football.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind Hawthorn back in the day when they were tagged unsociable, because they were actually hard at the ball and they actually went at the contest. Whereas some instances where you see Richmond lately, where they're giving away 50-metre penalties, they're doing things behind play, and they're doing things after the whistle's blown and dropping knees. It's I don't like some of that stuff.
It's really interesting because I spoke about this last week when I said to you, I'm like, I think that Richmond are starting to unravel. They've had a lot of off-field incidents this year, and it comes down to discipline. You don't see those champion teams, Hawthorn and Geelong, and even those dynasties, are the teams that didn't win the premiership. So you go through, like you're saying, Kilda and Collingwood. You don't see them involved in this sort of controversy through the year. And you don't see them give away undisciplined free kicks. You don't see them getting involved in those behind the players incidents. And it doesn't just happen from the senior players or one player. It's happening from 3 or 4 of them. And for me, it's not the pedigree for a premiership. It's not one of those teams that, if they do win, they're going to be regarded as one of those dynasties because they have they'll win, let's say 3 and 5 years. They've got that same sort of, resume as some of those other teams we've mentioned. But to me, it's just not the right way to win premierships.
Yeah, I think watching the game, I felt like Richmond had an aura of confidence about them, whereas St Kilda just freshly won their first final in 9 years. Were kind of hesitant to go at the contest at some points and things like that. So when they went for the footy, but then players would come over the top and do things that probably weren't part of the game, but the umpires weren't calling things and things like that. You just see, all right, Richmond kind of, do they want this more, or they know what they can get away with? It felt like they're playing on the edge and trying to get away with as much as they could. Perfect example when St Kilda earned a free kick, I think it was to Billings, about a 50-metre mark, and then Cochin just tackles Zach Jones too high. Dangerous tackle if it was in the play, but because the whistle had already been blown, the umpires didn't do anything about it. Saints remonstrated a little bit, but Cochin seems to do a lot of elbows and a lot of hits off the ball, which I don't mind giving players a little bit of a niggle, but when it turns really dirty and when it puts players in a dangerous position, that's when it's a bit too far.
Yeah, and most definitely, I think that you are right. For that one, I am a little bit more lenient. As you said, it was just after a whistle. It did come late. And you know what? You can give the benefit of the doubt maybe to, if it was his first incident or he didn't play for Richmond. If you look at like last week we spoke about Long and how, he's got a bit of a history from this. Cotchin's the same. He's got a little bit of history of this sort of stuff. And a lot of people are like, you need to be that arrogant team to win premierships. You don't need to do it. And I think that Richmond are a good enough football team and a good enough club. Their structure, they're well coached. They have got, talent around the ground. They seem to have recruited well too, because we see these young stars coming through. It's not something that I enjoy watching, and I don't enjoy talking about it. We're talking about Richmond having an absolute bounce back game and dominating. We're not really even talking about how Richmond played. We're talking about all these other little niggly things that stops them from being a champion team. And that's what, for me, that they've got to do, is get that undisciplined stuff out, because that cost them against Brisbane at crucial times, giving away those 50s.
Yeah, and it's happened again, and the coach backed it up as well. He backed up the
He always does.
And you kind of have to, but in this case, you could have just kept quiet about it, because there are a couple of things that weren't on. You've got other teams with other players getting suspended for little instances when they're going for the ball. And when Richmond are doing things like that and always getting away with a fine or not even cited, it's getting a little bit ridiculous. And Richmond fans may know about it, but I hope Port Adelaide were watching that and we're watching what they do. Try and get into Cochin, try and get into Lynch, because the umpires this week, no matter if they fine them or didn't do anything last week, they'll be watching for that and they'll try and stamp that out. So Port Adelaide, I'm thinking about Sam Powell-Pepper, I'm thinking about Tom Rockcliffe. Get that little niggle on early.
Dixon, mate. Charlie Dixon comes in a bit late, whack.
Get that little niggle on early and just get going, because you're playing against Richmond, the best team over the last 3 years, and they need something to fire them up. And the other incident that we haven't really spoken about, a soft knee to the throat of Dougal Howard, but it was a knee in any case after the play. He'd already given away the 50 metres by putting him to the ground after the whistle, and then he's decided, I'm going to drop a knee. It's like that local footy type. The dirty bloke from the other team always gets that cheap shot in after the whistle where he can't get seen and the umpires aren't watching. But mate, there's cameras on you. You've punched people all year and you've got away with it. You've got fines, and now you've gone and done this in a semi-final when you could have risked. Like, if you weren't wearing a Richmond jumper, I understand you're going to play anyway, and you know that, but you're going to risk getting suspended. And if he does something stupid in the prelim, when are the AFL going to stand up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to stand up this week, and I think that they've made an unpopular decision to make these sort of acts, fine sort of worthy. And you sort of mentioned it, that Richmond know exactly what they can get away with. They know exactly how far they can push it. And you talk about the dangerous act. I mean, it was a light sort of knee, I guess. But the issue is that he's laying on top of Howard's head. And as he's on the ground, he then throws the knee into, and it's around the neck area. Like, we're talking about the head being a sacred spot. And we talk about it, we protect him, like last week, the reason he got a week is because it was head-high contact, accidental head-high contact, and the guy ended up walking up. This bloke's on the floor, already down, not being able to defend himself, and whether it be a soft knee, a hard knee, a love tap, whatever it is, it's head contact, and it needs to be held in the same sort of respect as it is accidentally, and it just isn't. And if anything, to me, I don't understand, like, why it's off the ball. We pay free kicks for a shepherd off the ball, but we won't pay that. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, it's a strange one when players are going for the ball, making accidental contact. It's the same outcome where the other player continues to play out the game. There's no damage at all, and they still get suspended. So in this case, it's something different. Getting past those two incidences and actually talking about how Richmond won the game, we spoke about their centre clearances, we spoke about their quick entries inside forward 50, and Tom Lynch didn't have a very accurate night, 2 goals 5, but stood up where Rewalt was a little bit of a decoy all night and didn't really touch the footy.
Yeah, they were pretty efficient when they went inside the actual 50. Yeah, they made, as we've spoken about the last probably month of football, Richmond make sure that they make you pay. And, not only by the way that they sort of, pile on goals after turnovers, but it's that perceived pressure that they force. And you saw it many times. We spoke about this against Geelong versus Port Adelaide, where they put perceived pressure on St Kilda to just make poor decisions, rushed kicks. And, it was costly because it responded directly in a turnover, which meant that Richmond were coming back at again. And when teams are coming at you after, it's hard to keep up that thing. As you said, a young, inexperienced final side, they're going to score and they're going to score quickly if you don't stop it. So, they're a very high pressure team. We know that they make you pay, and that's exactly the algorithm that they use to win.
Yeah, and looking at the side, I reckon 21 players are safe and already picked for the prelim final. I reckon there's one in doubt, and I think it's the really good story from last year, Marlon Pickett. I think he's really struggling in the last month of footy, and his disposal's letting him down. He's not getting much of the pill, and I think they might have someone in the wings to bring in instead, and I'm tipping that might be a change this week.
Yeah, what do you have? 9 touches. He had a couple of clearances, and for his role, and for and you and I have always said this. We don't believe that he's this superstar that everyone's saying, and he was a great hard luck story. Came in, had a couple of good possessions in the premiership. When you win by 50 points, it's pretty easy to do that. Had a meaningless spin move, but he's sort of been gifted a spot because of a range of different injuries. But his spot definitely going to come into question this week against a fully fit, top of the ladder, in form Port Adelaide side.
Yeah, very interesting. I think he's the only one in question. Hardwick might just continue to go with him and continue to try and see what's happened. But that's what they did in the end. Martin was untouchable, and Hooley off the half back line, and then those 3 goals by Bolton, and then Shane Edwards. What a return from him as well. He's a great person to just slot in the finals when he comes back in and start going from there. They're talking about giving players contracts that they'll play a few games during the season and just so they can put them in finals. I think that'd be a bit unfair on the rest of the players if you're not going for that. But if that's the way it comes down to with these list changes, it's very strange.
It's the wrong way to attack a premiership. If you're going to be signing people at the start of the year just for the in case, or coming in the leading weeks for it, that's just the wrong way to do it. But you mentioned Basher Hooley. He was super impressive. 32 disposals. They Richmond are the best when they run that. They anchor everything from their back line, and you just didn't have to stop for him. And he's in elite form. He always has been. He's an amazing player to watch. One of my favourites. Is an elite kick. Just the way how much, you mentioned this on our last podcast, poise, how much poise he has with that football, and him be able to hit targets, lace out on the run, and it seems like he just seems to create space for other players. It's remarkable to watch.
And very respectful, as we saw in his post-match interview as well. It wouldn't have mattered who he was playing against, but he said, up-and-coming team, and just paid full respect to the other side, which was good to see. We speak about mistakes, and I think one mistake is Hunter Clark has been playing a little bit in the midfield in the previous weeks. Richmond were on fire at the start. St Kilda couldn't get a centre clearance. We were saying, put him in there in the first quarter. And then, all right, it's quarter time. They're going to make the adjustment. Put him in there. Didn't put him in the centre for the whole second quarter. Put him in the first bouncer in the third quarter. He gets a clearance, and they go from there. So he had a good second half in the centre, Hunter Clark. He needs to have a big preseason, and he needs to come back as a midfielder, not on the half back line.
Yeah, he had a decent sort of game, and it's better when they make those decisions in there, and we don't understand why that's happening. He's not being made in, he's not put in there regularly. Does he not have the tank? Is he's not part of his game plan? Because if he can go for those stints in there, and you can get him fully fit, and that engine going for a full game, that frees up a lot of aspects. And last week we saw him at his best in that midfield. He needs to be playing there regularly.
Yeah, and you talk about the other midfielders, Sebros and Jack Steele. They had 25 disposals each, but I'd say their games weren't up to par. I think they turned the ball over a bit, and their disposal wasn't at where it needed to be. I think Steele could have had a bigger influence in the middle there. So I think both of those players would be pretty disappointed with their performance off that. Hanbury was serviceable. He always spends a lot of time off the field. But the big recruit that I was super excited about and played really good early in the year, Brad Hill, hasn't he been struggling? They're not getting him the footy. They're not playing into his hands. He's not a contested player. We've seen in finals footy in this final series. When the ball's there to win, he backs out of the contest. He runs the other way. He just wants to receive the handball and run down the wing. He doesn't want to get any contact.
So how do you build him into your game plan then, Pez? You know, you spoke about him that he was a very highly touted recruit. He was very excited. You were very excited. In the preseason, we saw him rip up in that midfield. But you're right, he gets the easy pill. And for the brand of football that St Kilda wants to play and that they're most successful at, he needs to be getting those clearances and he needs to be getting a contested pill. And because he is such a great delivery into their forward line, you can't be an outside player all the time and be playing where he's playing. Like, how do they solve that problem?
Yeah, I think Brad Hill's just got to, as a 3-time premiership player, third club now, he's got to just go in there and he's got to try and win some contested footy, because that's what the opposition are trying to make him do, and they're really exposing him with that. They're not just letting him sit on the outside and receive the ball and kick it inside 50, because teams would be stupid to do that. They know how good of a kick he is. So he's got to go in there. He's got to show other teams that he can win the contested footy and get it out, and then it'll free himself up on the wing. So I think it's all around him. And that's what he needs to do in the off-season.
Yeah, so some big steps for you, St Kilda to do, and we will discuss that definitely later in the show when we do #season-over. But that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. You know, Richmond really took control of the game early. They made St Kilda pay, and they took control of those centre clearances, giving themselves multiple opportunities to go forward. Just a quick tip for next week, Pez. Going forward, no stats in front of you, no detail. Who wins it next week, Richmond or Port?
Being a final series, I'm a St Kilda supporter. St Kilda are out, so I'm all over the interstate teams. So let's go Port.
It's so funny that we discuss this every year. You're like me. I don't want another Victorian squad winning it. There's certain, obviously, interstate squads that you don't want it winning in it as well, but it's so weird that everyone's like, oh, you got to jump on the Victorian side. Bullshit. I'm supporting my side because I'm in Victoria. If I've got a mate side or someone second team that sort of you don't mind watching when your team's not playing, yeah, go for it. But otherwise, you're interstate all over.
No, well, I'm not the same as that, because some of my mates like you go for Geelong. I've got a mate that goes for North. I'm not backing them. I've got a mate that goes for Collingwood. Not backing them. I've got another mate that goes for Essendon. Not backing them. I could keep going on and on. I'm not backing any other club that my mates go for and let them have the wood over me going in the future.
That's because you guys haven't got a premiership in a long time, mate. All right, you spoke a little bit there about your mate's side and your mate's side doing well. One team that's still alive from our two teams in the pod is my team. Geelong came out an absolute domination of Collingwood. Collingwood, it was very obvious that they played their final last week and they got up there. They were very chatty during the week, a lot of Collingwood supporters. They called out Corns saying that, you're just making up numbers. But this is exactly what we're talking about with teams making an impact in finals. I would much rather lose that first week by a couple of points than get absolutely blown out of the water in that second week.
Yeah, it's a hard one, because the odds showed that Geelong weren't heavy favourites.
Should have been.
A lot of people were backing the Pies in after their win over in the West, but they're travelling back from the West. They're tired. They've got Mason Cox in their side. So what did we say on the pod last week?
Did Mason Cox play?
Oh yeah.
I didn't see any finger wags or any big, chest in a big American. Didn't see him at all.
The good meme was when he kicked that goal against West Coast and he's got the finger wag with just the one.
Yeah.
And it was just like Mason Cox touches in the semi-final.
Yeah, really disappointing for him, but disappointing for Collingwood fans who, as you said, a lot of even a lot of media people would sort of expected, and I don't think it's a combination of Collingwood obviously standing up against West Coast, but more to the fact of Geelong's poor finals form. But we've seen Geelong do this many a times. They lose that first week, they beat the team that they should beat, their second week, and then they are disappointing the week after.
Yeah. Well, I called it last week. I said it happened previously as well when they lost that first final. Everyone's talking about Geelong in straight sets. They came out and smashed Sydney. So it's kind of the same thing here, which is why I leant towards Geelong. I thought they'd win by a smaller margin than that, obviously, but Collingwood only kicking one goal up to three-quarter time. It's just horrible for their supporters. It's when we get into season over, we'll speak about it a little bit more. But they had 12 players with under 10 disposals.
Yeah, but and honestly, I don't even blame a lot of those Collingwood's players for not getting in touch. It's not one of those ones where Collingwood played poorly. Geelong didn't allow them to show up. They dominated that centre ruck clearances. Danger in that first quarter was amazing. Mitchell Duncan had about 17 touches in the first 5 minutes, and that ball just continually went down out of the middle. We spoke about Geelong's ruck issues, and it's a small sample size, but that's 2 weeks now that Reece Stanley has really done a great job in that ruck. Hopefully they keep him in there for the third game. They don't take him out for some absurd reason. But
Can't drop him now.
He was a massive part of Geelong dominating that game early. And also, as we've mentioned many times on the podcast, kicking straight wins games. And that not only does it kick winning scores, but it also builds confidence. And that was very evident in that second quarter when they started to pile it on.
Yeah, you miss 3 of those goals in a row and you start to put the pressure on, the scoreboard's not ticking over and Collingwood go down and kick one. It's a whole different ball game, whole different momentum. So Collingwood, you've got Treloar who had 18. Treloar had 17 disposals. No other player for Collingwood had over 15. Like they just didn't touch the ball. Anytime they went forward, they were kicking it long, even off Pendlebury's boot, which was surprising. And it was Blitzarves, it was Tommy Stewart who were getting the intercept marks and just controlling the ball across that back line, just racking up the disposals, racking up the uncontested marks and going forward when they needed to.
Yeah, and it's exactly what they tried to do last week, and this is why last week we gave so much praise to Port Adelaide, because they just stopped them from doing it. Geelong had the top 7 leading disposal getters. Their highest disposal getter was Treloar with 18. That's unheard of for a Collingwood side that has, Adams, Pendlebury, Treloar, Dacos and Chris have been starting to get up in that 20 mark, but they were just, as I said, they just didn't allow them to get into the game. And, it was disappointing as a Geelong supporter, and I suppose a lot of people that don't follow Collingwood, that last quarter that Geelong sort of put the cues in the rack and allowed Collingwood to, to get away from registering the lowest score in a final for them.
Yeah, well, they were talking about that on the commentary. It's probably because that was the only thing they could talk about to try and keep some interest in the game. Brodie Grundy really struggled in the final series. Really struggled.
He struggled for the second half of this year, actually.
I was going to say the month leading up at least to that final thing. I don't know. Is it going to come out that he was injured or something in this time? Because he's just not having that impact that he had. Other teams are planning for it and they're running around him. He's got no impact.
To me, for me, that's worse if he comes out and they hear that he's injured, because Darcy Cameron, as we saw, has been really holding up his own in there. And if he's injured, get someone else in there. Now I know Collingwood have had a lot of injuries throughout the year, and they've sort of a season they've done extremely well to finish. What were they going to finish? What's that, 6? I can never work it out after they do it.
Finish 8th,
but make it to a semi-final with the amount of injuries they've had. But they've either got to address his role and get him to become a standalone ruckman, or start to migrate into that a tall defender or a mid-forward or something else, because you're right, teams are planning for them, and he's no longer able to dominate games like he has been in the past couple of years.
Yeah, definitely not. Talking about dominating games, you need your big players to fire. Jordan De Goey didn't fire, and then it's announced that you might be wanting to go to Carlton. Like, we don't usually talk about these trade rumours, especially while the season's still on. It's a strange time of the year with the COVID, and it's mid-October and all that trade stuff starting to happen. But if he leaves Collingwood, that's a massive thing for them if they can't get someone else in, like a Jeremy Cameron or someone.
Yeah, especially, you imagine that they sort of spoke to Buckley about it after the game. It was interesting, a press conference, as you said, that they sort of moved on within 24 hours about, people leaving and this and that they spoke to, what sort of player that he would be looking to replace to go in. And they're not looking for a standalone forward. They want that sort of, that similar sort of forward like De Goey, that sort of medium to tall forward, snag a couple of goals, but also play minutes into the midfield, just like a Dangerfield or a Bontempelli or a, Dusty Martin, those sort of players. But they're not dime a dozen, Pez. They don't just pop up and I'd be doing everything I can, throwing everything at De Goey to lock him down, because, I think that their list is a pretty good list, and we were talking earlier in the year about being one of the most dominant midfielders and a really, really good list. And for the first time in a long time, I think both you and I actually really respected what they were doing and actually saw them as a top 4, top 6 side. So it'd be disappointing for Eddie Maguire and Collingwood supporters if they lose De Goey.
Yeah, 100%. We know he's got that court case still incoming and coming up and things like that, but it can be a star of the game, and that potential doesn't come around all the time, as you said. So do everything you can to keep him. You don't want him to go to Carlton, and Collingwood, you get Howe back next year at some point, who's an elite defender as well. You get a couple other names back, but you do need a big forward, because you can't keep going forward with Myercheck and Mason Cox as your main targets.
Yeah, first time he kicked multiple goals in the finals which I found was crazy, my check. That was absolutely crazy. But you mentioned superstars, Pez. We must talk about my Cats because we can't talk about a 68-point win and not talk about how spectacular Geelong were. We said that they piled on the goals. We said that they controlled that ruck. But as you said, they kicked the ball straight, which is really a great step to winning games. But it was the way that they did it. It was so businesslike. Dangerfield kicked 2 amazing goals from the boundary line. And I was watching it and I'm just like, wow, just the one finger salute, no carry on, no celebration back in there. He means business, and I'm really, really fearful for Brisbane next week if Dangerfield's in this mindset. Between him and Selwood, they look like men on missions to try and get to the promised land and, deliver a grand final goodbye for Gary Ablett.
Yeah, and look at the motivation. Do you need any more motivation? Because
surely not.
The cup is motivation enough. Some of these players have been there and got that and know how it feels. Dangerfield, something missing from his resume, and he really wants it. He really needs it. So Chris Scott played him up forward. Strange.
Well, he played him up forward after he dominated in that midfield. And the thing is, I told you this last week, I really worry when Dangerfield has one of these games because what makes him so effective as a footballer and as a forward is the fact that he dominates the games in the middle from the start, and then by the time the coach makes the adjustment, he then takes him down forward. And we've seen his marking overhead capacity. He was jumping at everything. He was getting 2 hands to almost every single contested contest that was coming up there. A couple of times he had his arms chopped or he dropped the mark, but making a play at everything in the forward line, and that's how you make an impact, is not starting him there. Because if you start him there, it's easy to plan because right from the word go, it's 1 or 2 options. Start him in the midfield, get him up that 7 or 8 touches in the first 5 minutes, dominate the clearances, and then as soon as they adjust to him, boom, you change.
I don't think he should go off the ground. I think if he's in the midfield and he needs a rest, put him up forward. I think he'll be able to deal with that. He's fit enough to do that. One player I was really impressed with was actually Gary Rowan, who is a really strong overhead mark when it comes to him. Didn't have too much of the ball and didn't kick a goal, but just his way around the ground, his poise, and was able to kick the ball into the middle to get the better shots at goal was amazing. And Ablett did the same. Ablett could have pinged from 50, 60 metres out a couple of times, and he just spotted up the right target inside forward 50.
Yeah, they definitely do what an experienced team does. It doesn't matter who scores, as long as we score. And you saw it, there was a play where I think actually Rowan started off where he sort of marked it in the 45. He chipped a kick to Guthrie, who was about 50 out, but on a worse angle, and then they chipped it again. There was 3 chip kicks inside 50 that set up Menegola for a perfect shot on goal right in front, and that's what you've got to do. And you know what I like most about this win, Pez, is that we're not doing what every other media talk show is doing and stating the obvious that, it was good that Tom Hawkins kicked goals. He had a good game last week. He was inaccurate, had a great game. This week, had a better game, right? Because he was able to push up the ground, start that offense from that overhead mark, about 70, 80 out, set up his run, and what's really great is he's giving those score assists as well.
Yeah, and leading the league in score assists and winning the Goldman medal is an amazing feat in itself, and he's continuing to do that in finals. He doesn't care if he kicks a goal as long as his team can get the victory. And as I said last week, he would have really put that loss on his head last week, kicking 0-5 and a couple of missed shots as well on the full. And he's come out this week and done the best thing for the team on every possession. And they got away with a 68-point win. Collingwood, see you later, and their season's over. And Geelong. Yeah, you're fighting for a grand final now.
Geelong on to next week. I think it's going to be a really great matchup. It's going to be a great final series for the last week of finals. Before we get into the big dance, Pez, there's not really, there are favourites, but if you look at the betting market, Port Adelaide and Richmond are even money, and I think Brisbane is a slight 20-cent favourite or whatever with Geelong. And that's probably as close as it's been for the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, as we said at the start of the final series, you must finish top 4 to have a realistic chance of winning it. Yes, we know the Bulldogs did it in 2016 from 7th, but it's most likely not going to happen again. And we saw that Richmond, controlled the game, won by 31 points, Geelong won by 68. The 2 teams that lost the first week. And usually it does happen in the media when the 2 teams lose the first week and the 2 bottom 4 sides win. It's always talked about like, this team's informed because they won. This team's no good because they lost. But realistically, they finished top 4 for a reason, and they showed it on the weekend.
Yeah, they did. And, it's going to be a really, really great final series. And you're right, Pez. There is no informed teams in this because everyone has lost. Everyone who's come in there has had a week off and lost one and won one. The top 4 teams are in there the way it should be, and really, really looking forward. And I will be so nervous all probably Friday and Saturday. But as I said, super, super proud that my team's there, and hopefully we can get one more win and face off for a grand final.
Yep, hopefully you can. I did see Razor Ray do a couple of strange things on the weekend again, and I think he's looking at it getting dropped himself.
Surely he's off. He's making, and I don't really go after umpires, but the fact he's making so much about himself in the game, the way that he's talking to players, the way he's carrying on, and
he knows he's mic'd up.
Oh, just
he
take a step back.
It's not about you, mate. He's bounced the ball. It's gone out. It's a horrible bounce. Don't joke about it.
It's not funny.
The player throws it back to him, and he's catching the ball and doing I don't know what he's doing.
Just carrying
stupid
on.
shit. Razor Ray, you need to be dropped. See you later. Get out of the bubble. Get back to where you live. I don't want to see him umpiring again.
The thing is, everyone makes it, and Channel 7 and Fox.
Oh, they make it.
They make it such a joke, and realistically, he actually is not a bad umpire. He just takes things and makes it about himself, and it really worries me as a fan of sport, because when these people are involved in finals and it becomes a big moment in the game, what are the chances of him actually going the whole look at me and pulling something ridiculous out? You saw that in that final, actually last week, the very first call, the deliberate out of bounds in the first half where Geelong kicked the ball out and it's dribbled along the floor and they've pinged it. You've got to be joking. But that all that was the old peacock. Look at my feathers. Everyone look at me. Just carry on. I can't stand it.
We respect the umpires and they're there to do a job, but just do your job.
Just do your job.
Get paid, do your job, and don't act like a tool and a dickhead.
My coach has always said
that's what he did.
Coach has always said the best umpire is one that you don't even notice. Like, who umpired us? I can't even remember who it was. Must have done a great job.
And that's the thing. How many umpires would you know by their name?
Except for our man JB.
Goal umpires is a different story because we watch them very carefully. But I'm talking about field umpires. You know hardly any of them unless they're in a special game and the commentary team highlights it. You see some people on Twitter going, "Oh no, we've got this player, this umpire umpiring us. They're going to be biased."
It's only ever the one person. It's only ever the one person people do. No one. You name another umpire. Couldn't do it. No one could.
Yeah, but. No talking about umpires. There's 2 teams that just lost their seasons and their season's over. So let's get into that segment.
Season over.
And here we have it, season over. We lost 2 teams. We lost St Kilda and we lost Collingwood. So what we'll do here is we'll give them a hashtag for their season to sum it up and talk a little bit about what they need to do in the off-season, what they need to do going into the season 2021. So we'll start off with My Saints Sauce. They're out. They're gone. You got a hashtag for them?
Yeah, I do. I was really happy with the Saints, and I was high on the Saints coming into this season. I said that they were a top 8 side. I think I actually had them finishing top 4 in our mid-season show when we went through. They finished 6th. Really happy for them. I think that a lot of St Kilda fans would say that they're ahead of schedule in terms of the way they performed this year. So for me, the hashtag is 6 Heaven, because you finish 6th, 7th Heaven's one of those things that, meant to be that sort of talked about, amazing thing. You got the Saint reference there, but you're exactly where you need to be. Your goal this year had to be make finals. You did that, tick. You won your first final, boom, tick. Next year, you're aiming for top 4, or you're looking to make it to that second week and get a win. So for me, the season was a massive success. You saw some really great recruits running around. Their list management has been really good. It's a shame that you had a couple of those injuries and sort of people that had to attend to some personal issues and some family issues, that you couldn't see a full squad against Richmond, because I don't think you would have won, but it would have made it a lot closer. And hopefully you can retain most of those things next year.
Yeah, it would have made for more interesting viewing, of course. It was a good year as a Saints fan myself, and watching them go about it. And they did give away leads, and they got a lot of learning to do, steep learning curves within games, and being able to control the tempo and things like that. They got a lot of growth coming up, which is through the draft in Hunter Clark and Nick Caulfield. Players coming through. Josh Battle played a good game on the weekend after sitting, I think it was 33 minutes on the bench. We thought he was out for the game, and then he comes back on, something to do with his foot, and he came on, kicked a goal and had an impact. They've got the players around there. My man, Max King, kicked 0 goals 3, very inaccurate in that final, but he performed the week before. He's going to be a monster. He's going to be a Coleman medalist sooner or later. But my hashtag for them, I'm still about the semi-final and the loss, and hashtag Paddy Whack, because it was a massive whack. He starred for us in that first final and got us over the line, and I think if he was there, he would have dominated in the ruck, and it would have made that centre clearance game more so in the favour of St Kilda. And if they were able to compete with that, you never know what could have happened.
I mean, you lost the centre clearances. Not that it's always a direct relation to the actual, the ruckman. You lost it 15-5, Pez. You have to give yourself a decent opportunity, adding a couple of more, couple of more extra looks at it. And as you said, you were in with a chance for that for most of the game. Takeout obviously when they sort of piled on early, but yeah, a bit disappointing.
Yeah, and good season overall. Brett Ratton's doing the right thing. The club's recruiting the way they need to. We need to get another, strong midfielder in there. You need that strong-bodied midfielder that can dispose of the ball really, really well. They did delist 5 players straight up. We will talk about the delistings and stuff when that's all said and done. Not many names that people would know. Names like Logan Austin, Langdons, and Ryan Abbott come to mind as delistings.
Yeah, Jack
haven't
Bell,
really played.
Jack Mayo, as you said, not many there.
Yeah, a couple of those boys might be picked up on the rookie list again. We'll see what happens, but they're going in the right direction. I think they're attractive. They're a more attractive team now, where players might want to come to them. They had the 5 recruits during the off season that really came and stood up and did some good things. You add Dan Hanbury there, who got recruited the year before and has spent a lot of time on the sidelines. A midfielder. Keep Paddy in the ruck, keep developing Rowan Marshall. You've got your forwards that you're developing. Your young defence is looking good. I think it's only up. So anything that misses finals next year would be a fail. You've got to aim for top 4.
Yeah, most definitely. Or 2 finals wins. I think that's what you're going to do, because you only had 1 extra win this season than last year, which is surprising that you finished 6 from there. Obviously a shortened season. But for me, St Kilda have got to win the games that they're meant to win and not blow big leads. You took a step in the right direction this year from holding on for a couple of those wins. But as we said, you got to win from the top 4. 2 losses come to mind where you blew big leads. And to me, that's 2 more spots that would have got you finishing top 4, would have given you a double chance and given you every opportunity to go in with a bit more confidence. You still may have lost to a Richmond side, in better form, but realistically, you've got to do that. For me, what you need to do is, Brett Ratton's already sort of said that you need some more midfield depth, and he's already come out and said that. You need that big body midfielder, like someone like, before he went into a bit of strife, one of the Crouch brothers would have been perfect for you. Someone in there who gets the ball and then could have given it to someone like Hill on the outside to get the ball rolling.
Yep, definitely our weakness and what we need. We need Steele to continue developing. He won the Best and Fairest medal Sunday night as well, the St Kilda function. And we just need to keep developing that midfield. I think Billings is either a trade target for someone. I don't think he has too much value. He's got to really step up, and the coach needs to decide where he's going to play. Is he going to be a forward? Is he going to be a stay-at-home forward? Is he going to play on the wing and try and deliver the ball in? Because sometimes he has a big impact on a game. We've seen it, 20, 24, 25 disposals, and he plays really, really well. And then there's games where he has 11, 12 disposals and you hardly notice him. He's got no impact. So he's a top 3 draft pick from a few years back, and he really needs to step up and take it to the next level, just like most of the list. And if the list can all, take that next step, they can continue to build.
And that's what you want to do. Continue to build to season 2021, make a top 4 or a semi-final again and achieve a win, and hopefully deliver a premiership, Pez, because it's one that you've definitely been lacking, and one that you sort of have deserved over the last 10 years to at least. I'm not going to say deserve, because
don't piss in my pocket, mate. We haven't won one, and just that's it. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of pissing in people's pockets, I know, Pez, that you're going to be looking forward to have a whack at Collingwood here. Pez, they had a pretty up and down season. They were highly touted as one of the teams to beat in there. They were hit hard with the injury stick throughout the year, as well as some undisciplined acts that sort of saw many of their players on the sideline for half the year. Pez, what's your hashtag for Collingwood?
I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy watching Collingwood games, and if they're winning by a lot or losing by a lot, we just see Eddie Maguire's face. I have to come home, put on the TV, he's on hot seat. He's on Footy Classified. He's on all these different footy shows, and he's on Triple M radio. And then I've got to sit down in the footy, and it keeps panning to him at the footy. And I just keep seeing him. They're losing by 68 points. Leave him alone. I don't want to see him anymore. So it didn't seem like Collingwood were ready to play either. So I've gone with hashtag Eddie or not. A little play on ready or not. Collingwood weren't really ready, and Channel 7, whoever you are, Foxtel, stop showing Eddie.
Yeah, it's disappointing because he's not like some of these other pretend presidents. You can see he cares so much, and he literally bleeds black and white, and there's passion for it, for the way that he handles himself in games, and most of the time he's there with his family. Leave the poor bloke alone. Let him, I wouldn't want a camera on me if my team was losing at any stage, let alone 70 points in a final. Like, just leave the poor bloke alone. But I've gone with... For me, I think they had a really good season, Collingwood, and I think that they were sort of hit with the injury bug. They did overcome a lot of adversity, and I'm really hopeful for Collingwood if they can keep this side together. Sign on Degoe, maybe lock in another sort of forward, get rid of Cox, and maybe if they can get Jeremy Cameron as that second sort of forward there. But I've gone with the hashtag swooping season because... For me, this is exactly what magpies do. They when they start swooping, they're trying to protect their nest. They're showing off all the things that make them, one to watch going forward. So they've got the beak clapping, they're whooshing above their head, they're flapping the arms, they're showing everyone that hey, we're almost here. And I think that this season, that big win in West Coast is more scary for next year than it was this year because, as you said, they weren't ready for the Geelong game. But I think if they can get a couple of signings, build that momentum for that final series, they'll be a really dangerous side next year.
Yeah, you're going to lose a few players through the delistings and stuff, but you need to strengthen that forward line. We speak about it most of the time. Collingwood lose. Brody Mychek, Mason Cox are not that. Jordan DeGoey, great third forward, amazing. But you've got to get some big twin towers in there. You've got Tom Lynch and Jack Riewoldt over at Richmond who have been the benchmark over the last 3 years. You need something like that. You need two players like that. So I think Collingwood, what you need to do, bite the bullet. Mason Cox, send him back to America. Send him back overseas. We don't want to see him anymore in the AFL. What's he going to do? He's kicked 5 goals in Richmond in a prelim final. Still didn't win the premiership. And then he's kicked 3 goals in 3 minutes against West Coast and won them an elimination final. Yeah, all right. Well done. You've done nothing in your career. Send him back home because surely there's an Aussie homegrown player that's going to have a bigger impact every single week than Mason Cox.
I just think that you do one better. You offer him a contract minimum, a veteran minimum, as they call it in the NBA, because we'll put it in American terms for him. So it's nice and easy for him to understand. He gets the minimum. No one else is going to pick him up. And then what they need to do is go after someone like Gunston. Go after someone like him. Sign Myercheck. Sign Dacos. Sign. Darcy Moore as well as Degoe, as we said. And then you could look at maybe, go after or pursue someone like Jeremy Cameron or even Ben Brown. Ben Brown would be perfect for them. If they put Ben Brown in that side, a lead out, one out forward with that midfield and that absolute delivery on a platter, that would put them in a top 4 contention.
It sounds not bad. Put Ben Brown and Jack Gunston in there instead of Myercheck and Cox,
and then have Cox on the injury list ready to go in case they do have an injury. He steps in. His forward structure is the same, and he can learn from Ben Brown how to actually lead because that's his problem. He just wants to be the tallest bloke in the world and put his hands up and expect it. If he learned Ben Brown's leading patterns, and as much as I hate to admit it, Buckley's a really good coach. He could definitely use a forward like Ben Brown, give him a good coaching opportunity because Ben Brown hasn't been coached well. For his potential, for him to be leading straight lines and having such a centric game plan around one player is crazy. That's not how you free up a key forward.
Yep, and you talk about the negatives. The forward line is their weakness. They do have to improve. 3 massive positives, I think, for Collingwood this year. Josh Dacos, an amazing player on the wing, gone into the midfield more than he's playing in the forward line in previous years. And midfield and wing suits him to a T, amazing kick. Another player that has impressed me, Braden Maynard, who used to, Bucks believed in him and Bucks was right. He couldn't kick this bloke. He turned the ball over plenty of times every single game. Bucks just kept persisting because he saw something and knew something and, became All-Australian 40 and good on him. And the other player, Isaac Quainer, off that half-back line, he's got the poise. That's the word of the week.
Word of the month.
Word of the month. And just that run and intent to play on and take the game on, and he's got that confidence. So I really like watching those three players.
Yeah, I think you've forgot one key player that I've been super impressed with, and probably Collingwood's next captain, Taylor Adams. He has slowly been building quite a resume in that midfield. He had his first All-Australian this year. He was an absolute standout. But if you spoke to most football lovers, they wouldn't even notice him because he just goes about his business, doesn't do the fancy things, just does the basic stuff, gets a lot of the pill, but he puts his players around him to be in an amazing position to go forward, and he makes everyone look better, similar to Scott Pendlebury. And I think that, he ended up, dislocating his shoulder or breaking his arm on a Stanley smother on the weekend. He is captain material, and, mate, it's very positive for their future.
Yeah, but the best thing about Taylor Adams' season was when Treloar was out and Pendlebury was out, he stood up and he took his game to the next level and continues to do so. So a lot of upside for Collingwood, but yeah, you got to fix that forward line.
It's the only thing holding them back, because the issue was obviously against Geelong, they didn't kick goals, but one of the things that you always say about Collingwood is, I don't know where their goals are going to come from. They do, look, obviously they pile it on, but you need to guarantee 3 or 4 goals from, multiple forwards. Look at West Coast. You know where West Coast goals are coming from. And then they also get the other contributors as well. Geelong, you know where they're coming from. Brisbane, you know where they're coming from. Like these teams, Richmond, you know where they're coming from. You need to know where at least 5 or 6 goals are coming from. And if they address those issues, they've got an elite midfield there. Their back line is really good. They had 2 All-Australians in that back line.
Put Howe back in there next year. It's it can be on the up for Collingwood, but they do have to make some major moves. They usually they like their players to stay, but you got to make some tough calls sometimes.
Yeah, they should go after Sard as well. I just thought about that. I know Sard's been interested in moving clubs. They should go after Sard. He would fit perfectly into that side.
He's going to Carlton, mate.
Yeah, but they should pursue him. Like if he's going to Carlton's been named for De Goey, why not pursue him even harder? Like why not? Like he would be perfect for their side.
No, you can ask a question all the time and see what happens, but he's not going to kick them goals in the forward line, so they need to be able to do that. But I don't think Jeremy Cameron will go there either. Jeremy Cameron might be coming to your club, actually.
Yeah, it'd be good. Get rid of Jenkins, and maybe we'll trade Jenkins to Collingwood.
You know what? He would have been better than Mason Cox this year. And I hate Josh Jenkins.
I know you do. They're like your all-Australian of people that you hate. It's just them two over and over again.
Mason Cox and Josh Jenkins. I do like a lot of players though.
And Bruce.
And I'm very positive. Very positive footy supporter actually. So looking forward to the prelim finals coming up. Big Friday and Saturday nights coming up this week. 2 interstate finals. I would usually go to the prelim finals as well. As an AFL member, but we couldn't go anyway this week, so it's just going to be the same. Coronavirus, didn't win this week.
What? Yeah, coronavirus didn't because we couldn't win anyway. Yeah, okay,
because we couldn't go to the game anyway.
Oh, cool. So it's a victory against coronavirus. Hopefully, we do have a victory against the coronavirus on the Sunday when they announce. Hopefully, that we can have some people over for the grand final, Pez, because grand final, I don't know if I can do it alone.
You're going to have all your screens around you on Zoom and getting everyone involved. Have a big crowd there, but that's it. We'll see what happens. Love talking footy again. We'll do a cheeky punch show later on, and we'll also do a pre-finals show, which is what we did last week. So if you didn't hear them, take a look back and have a listen to what we came up with before the games last week, when the games have already been played and listened to. Sometimes it's good to go back and listen to those things and see what we said, and if Sauce sounded like an idiot and I sounded like I knew what I was talking about. So that's all good. I'm Pez. Peace out.
I'm still Sauce. We'll catch up next time, guys.